Taylor, thank you. No Kings rallies took place across the country on Saturday, including here in South Mississippi. Protesters practicing their First Amendment right were spread along Highway 90 in Biloxi, expressing their concerns with today's political climate. Citizens spoke out on concerns like the ongoing ICE raids, immigration discussions, LGBT issues, and government spending. Organizers say the rally gives people a chance to speak out on their rights alongside their community.
It gives people a feeling that they aren't alone, that there are people that think like them, and we are building a movement.
More than 200 people attended the